We are back on Morning Line talking Black History Month with a professor from MTSU of African Studies, Dr. Adonijah Bakari. Dr. Bakari, are you there with us still? Joining us from Zoom. It's good to have you here. And, you know, I was thinking about some of the things we see in today's world with regard to race relations and whether there's inequities there. Of course, we know we've had an African-American president. We now have an African-American vice president, okay, which is well due time that something like that occurred. Then you look at the situation in the National Football League, okay, which is, I don't know what percentage of the players happen to be black, but it is the vast majority. Not as much as the NBA, but the vast majority. And as we sit here right now, Professor, there is one black head coach, Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers. There have been others in the past, okay, they come and go. But right now, as we sit here in 2022, one black coach, head coach in the NFL. And we know, you know, don't tell me that there aren't, people are going to say, well, you hire who's qualified. That's crap. Don't tell me there aren't other qualified African-American coaches. That is indisputable. And yet we know, I think, the vast majority, if not all, of the NFL owners are rich white men. Do you think there's a connection there?
You know, Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without demand. It never has and it never will. That I think the idea of sports in general is, you know, keeps us living in a fantasy land. Look, I played football in high school. My youngest son wrestled, and all of my sons had the opportunity, you know, to be athletes and to play organized sports. I think it's a wonderful thing. So I'm not beating up on the idea of sports itself, but I'm beating up on the idea that we as a country, we would even have to have the discussion about who's running a game. I mean, sports really are, they're a game, but we've made them more important than education. You know, you go to any college in the United States, and most of the football coaches make more than the presidents. Yeah. What's up with that? You know, both of my parents were teachers, and, you know, teachers are paid so little in America that nobody wants to be a teacher anymore. And it's not only pay, it's, you know, the respect. So we look at athletes, people want to be athletes. You know, we've made it something glorious. We made it something wonderful. But I think we're missing the mark, that we're in a country that education is under attack, and we're still stuck on the idea of, you know, will the baseball season happen? You know, the lockout, how is that going to affect, you know, what happens? How do you feel? The lockout's not.
Do you think the black athletes could play a larger role in some of this? We all know about Colin Kaepernick. You look at the NBA and you see LeBron James, I think, is socially active to a large degree. You think, arguably, and it was a different time, the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan, was very obviously not socially active, and you could argue he had a potential there to do a lot, but you know, you can debate and hear him say that's not my place. What do you think when you think about black athletes who are more outspoken, say like LeBron James or Colin Kaepernick? Is that important, you think, that they use that bully pulpit they have as great athletes?
I mean, that's an excellent question. I definitely think it's important. Definitely. But I don't know if we can hold, I think we should, but I don't think we necessarily can hold folks who are 19 and 20 and 22 years old responsible for the progress of the whole race or the whole country. You know, athletes quite often are, you know, they're young. They come from backgrounds where they had to claw their way out of, you know, particular neighborhoods, and I don't think they're always prepared to have that type of weight on their shoulder. You know, it'd be nice when you see a Kaepernick. It's nice when you see a Jim Brown. It's nice when you see, all of these athletes who would speak out. But that's a lot to put on young folks. So I think as a society, we have to really begin to raise the question that says, who speaks for African Americans? Okay, in other societies, scholars speak for the group. So, and when I say scholars, I don't necessarily just mean folks with PhDs, but I mean people who have lived some life, who've done some research, who've walked in a particular path. I think those are the people we need to have speaking for us. And if athletes can do it, right on. I mean, I have athletes in my class at MTSU, and I'm always pushing them to, think about more than just making it to the NFL or the NBA. What about your community? What about your community? But I don't think somebody 20 years old is really thinking about what happens to their race and their society in the long term. I don't think that happens.
Maybe not yet. Well, we spoke in the last segment a bit. You talked about elections and voting rights, and we see a lot of the redistricting and the gerrymandering that can come on that can change districts. And there are those who say, okay, the party in power can do some of the redistricting, and they may say it's based on population. There are others saying this is blatantly obvious what they're doing. They're trying to structure it so that more of their candidates can win, and it, in a lot of cases, leaves some of the qualified African-American candidates in situations where they simply cannot win. And I'm curious, with regard to that, and you saw just recently the redistricting here in Nashville that split our congressional district into 3. Do you worry that if this happens, because let's face it, to bring change, everyone needs to get out and vote. And now no one's saying that certain segments can't vote, right, Professor? But what they are doing is making it maybe more difficult in terms of access, what you have to show to be able to vote. And some of the voters may not want to go through all that, and so they stay away. And if that's a large portion of, say, the African-American community, they're not voting and their candidates won't get elected. That's a big potential problem.
Right. It really is. And not only people feeling like they can't vote, but does my vote count?
Right.
And that's, I think, the main issue. I wish we could shake Americans and get us to realize that, there's something called fair play. And I played football in high school, and our coach would always say that it was better to win fairly than to win at all costs. That this idea, if your side wins, and then 50 or 60% or 40% of the American population is unhappy with the win, that affects us all, winners and losers.
Yep. That
if we have a society and we can't decide, what's a fair and free election, we're on the slippery slope of being, Russia, okay? That, how long and how important is it for people to hold power? And, I'm just a regular guy, so I guess I don't understand the complexities of power like that. But I realize that if we want to have a society that is truly democratic, we have to accept if my side loses, okay, we lost this one. We're going to pull our votes together and we're going to do better in the next election. But not that we're going to cheat our way or maneuver our way into power. That's, it's building a society that's unsustainable.
But there's plenty of people that are going to be okay with doing it, just what you said, cheating and maneuver your way to power. That's the problem,
That's the problem. You
just have to ensure.
King said that if he was in another country and people lied and cheated about elections, he said he could understand that. But, let's just tell the truth. Are we in a country where we say, winning by any means is what's most important? If so, let's not try to deceive the rest of the world. that this is a democracy. You know, let's just be truthful about it. The worst thing in life is a liar. Let's just tell the truth. But if we're going to tell the world one thing, let's do what we tell the world. That's just my take on it. And that's probably why I'm not rich and famous, right? Because
I'm glad you're a teacher. Listen, sit tight. We're going to come back, our final segment, talking Black History Month right after this. Stay with us.